Well, it's been a little bit since we tackled this question during our midweek Lenten services that centered on some of Jesus' parables. But our gospel reading for today begs us to ask it once again. What is the kingdom of God? We hear Jesus time and time again telling parables, almost always beginning them with, the kingdom of God is like, or the kingdom of God may be compared to. But what is this kingdom of which he speaks? And today, what's the deal with scattered seeds, mustard seeds, and birds? It's been 2,000 plus years, and still the words of Jesus often leave us puzzled, especially these that we find in these pesky parables. Is the kingdom of God a place? Is it heaven or someplace else where God resides and watches us go about our lives? Perhaps it is heaven. But I think there's a lot more to it than we might really think. Perhaps the kingdom of God is here. Perhaps it is now. It is the reality we live in as God acts and moves in our lives and in all of creation. When the authors of the Gospels talk about this kingdom, when Jesus says it is at hand, we can be certain that God's power and grace are with us as we navigate all the complexities of this world that we experience. We can be certain that the kingdom of God becomes realized as the sower plants the seeds of the gospel in and around us. So what is the kingdom of God like? Well, according to our parables today, it's like seeds that get scattered randomly, get sprout and grow without the sower's full knowledge of how or why it happened. It grows, it ripens, and is harvested. It thrives. It grows even when we don't realize it. It grows like a crazy mustard seed, spreading all over the place, providing comfort and shelter. Okay, that kind of makes sense, I get it. Kind of. But here's the thing, at least for me. I hear these parables and I can work out in my head and in my heart that this kingdom of God, this reality that God calls us to live into and participate in, often starts out as something small and gets nurtured by God's love and grace in our lives. I can work out the call from the gospel to, well, spread the gospel of Christ, so that all may know the greatness of God's love. I get or can come to understand that God's activity among us will surprise us. It will comfort us and protect us. But this whole scattered seeds can sprout and grow without anyone knowing how or why it happened thing, that never really made sense to me. But after last Monday morning, it made a whole lot of sense. So Mondays are generally my day off, and I like to be lazy on Monday mornings whenever I can. So at about 9:30 or so, I was still in bed. I was playing around on Facebook or something, I'm sure, when my brother called. He's not the greatest morning person either, so I was a little surprised to hear from him on Monday morning. I was even more surprised when he sounded as though he had been crying. He said he had something to tell me that would make me cry. Preparing for the worst, I held my breath. And then through happy tears, he told me this. I was at work this morning at HMC doing time cards for the staff. He manages group homes for adults with disabilities. He also teaches ethnic and multicultural studies at Mankato State University. Both are important to remember for this story. He continued, and this young African woman came up to me. She said, "Professor, I'm not sure if you remember me, but I took a class from you a few years ago." He remembered. She then went on to tell him that she remembered me co-lecturing with him one day on disability, and how it relates to ministry as well as ethnic studies. In particular, she remembered us talking about the importance of caring for and respecting the lives, agency, and dignity of people with disabilities. Well, after that lecture and after taking that class with my brother, she changed her major from political science to nursing and began working in her local group homes. What's more is this. She's from Liberia, a place where people with disabilities often don't receive adequate services, where many are left out in the streets because no one wants to care for them, and no one's really figured out how to make independent living possible. Through what she learned from my brother, and the little bit she learned from me, this young woman has been able to go to her home country and work with her local government to purchase 25 acres of land, so that when her schooling is complete, she can go home and begin the process of building group homes in her community. Now, my brother was in tears as he told me all of this. Neither of us knew that something so amazing that will potentially save so many lives could come from that one semester and that one lecture. Like the sower who scatters the seeds and doesn't see its growth in the night, he and I didn't see until nearly 3 years later the impact the seed we planted could have. I believe God is working great things in this young woman, all for the sake of others. For the sake of loving and caring for people who often cannot care for themselves. People who may have never otherwise known the love of God or community. So last Monday, it was a good day off. Her story, told through my brother, has made these seedy parables click for me much more deeply in my head and in my heart. The kingdom of God has been realized. The way God intends our world to be has been realized in her work and love for marginalized people. A people that God calls us to love will one day in her community be seen more fully as God's children and not as unworthy burdens. God's activity knocked my socks off that day, and I can't wait to see the harvest that will come from it. Now, I'm sure some people in her community won't like what she's doing or understand it. Like a mustard seed that can get all viney and annoying and wind around hills and valleys, God's work in her will spread and be persistent, even when it isn't completely understood. It will be her task to tend to it, as it is our task to tend to God's work among us. Even when people around us cannot see in any way, shape, or form how God can do anything good in our divided and fallen world. Now, I say this is our task because whether we're ready for it or not, as I said, the kingdom of God is here now. God is breaking into our world now, shaking it up, working for good and justice in our midst, even as we too often continue to mess it up in so many ways. And really, this text tells us that God is going to be at work whether we do anything or not. God's love, care, and redemption will spread and bring new life in the most unexpected of places. Yet we are still called to participate in God's redeeming work. We are called to love, serve, comfort, and protect the most vulnerable among us. To remind them that God is first a loving God, one who will disrupt all kinds of things in our world for God's love to win over hate, pain, and the ways in which we sin against each other. To let God's kingdom grow in us, wherever we seeds have been scattered and thrown along the way. So this morning I have to ask, where have you seen the kingdom of God at work lately? What seeds of faith have you helped to plant in the lives of others? The kingdom of God, as it gets lived out in our world, won't look like we want it to much of the time, or how we expect it to look. Seeds, ideas, dreams may not come to bear fruit. We may not get exactly whatever we want when we pray. We may not get to see the harvest of the seeds that we sow. And yet the promise is that God is at work in and through all things. God will show up in those unexpected places and in unlikely people. And that is a great and wonderful thing. We need God to show up in unexpected places and in unexpected people. We need God to sow seeds everywhere so that our brothers and sisters know of God's redeeming love. So our world can find hope somewhere when we humans so often fail to produce that hope by ourselves. We have seen this hope realized most fully in the saving work of Jesus Christ, the one who brought in the kingdom of God 2,000 years ago, the one who calls us to participate in it today. So maybe this week, look for the places where you see the kingdom of God at work. And I hope that you share what you see with one another. You see, the good news has been planted and sown by God. Now may we bear witness to it as we grow in relationship with Christ and with one another. Amen.